My name is Adam. I'm an aspiring filmmaker, a photographer, a bit of an adventurer, and most recently, a nomad. I'm back on the road and I'm not doing it alone. I'm teaming up with other travelers chasing the same dreams as me, to live life on our own terms. From exploring their rigs to unveiling their lifestyles, we explore what the pursuit of Borderless looks like. My first two stops on this adventure were at two of the greatest national parks, the Grand Canyon and Zion National Park. I see why these parks are famous. Everyone, at some point in their life, needs to go check out these beautifully preserved national landmarks. But I didn't buy this fancy van to go places where everybody can go. I wanted to learn from other van life people how to get out of the cities, away from the crowds, and take advantage of being a nomad. So I headed to Albuquerque, New Mexico to meet Mike and Jill, who showed me how they have been camping out in national forests all around the country. Every time I've gone to a national park, it's like nature made easy. You know, like what's your view on like national parks versus somewhere like, you know, this campsite that's just like, you know.
That's a good question.
It's a great question. So the national parks usually don't disappoint. The only thing that's tough sometimes is the crowds.
Yeah,
there is
sucks.
crowds. Sometimes like Zion, for example, we had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Every day we did Zion in order to get in line for the shuttle to make sure we got to a hike that was not crowded, because by 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. it's a zoo, and it almost takes away from the beauty of the park.
Right.
But some of the best moments have been in the national forests or the
State
Bureau
parks.
of Land Management areas like we are right now, where you could literally just pull off. Like in Utah was probably the best, Utah and Colorado, as far as camping. You could pull off anywhere on those lands, public lands. And those moments were the best because it was usually us or maybe a few other vans or RVs
even
out there.
State parks, like some of like really, like Custer State Park was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it should have been a national park.
I think
know?
state parks are underrated.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, every time I've gone to a national park, it's like, okay, like just follow the paved sidewalk to the view.
Yeah, with signs and directions and rules and like permits and all that kind of stuff, which you get caught up in, but like some of them are incredible. Like some of the biggest hikes we went on were in national parks that were unbelievable, that we'll never, you know, get anywhere else. But, you know, you have to play the game and do the process, but it's worth it.
Mike and Jill are a young couple that are living life a little bit differently. After making a killing in the real estate market at several different cities, they've decided to do an early retirement and spent the past 6 months on the road, visiting some of this country's greatest places. We met up in Albuquerque to check out the International Balloon Festival, but unfortunately, the weather was against us. It ended up being too windy to put up the balloons, so we camped out for a few nights in a national forest just south of the city.
So we started in North Carolina because we dropped off all of our stuff at our parents' house. So then we went up to Michigan and then down through Wisconsin, and then we headed west from there. So Minnesota and then South Dakota. Hung out there for a little bit, and then we popped down through Colorado. Spent a bit of time through Colorado, Utah, then Idaho, southern Idaho, and then Wyoming. Then we flew out for our first vacation, Montana. then headed west and then went all the way down the coast. And now we're here in New Mexico on our way back east.
All right, so whose idea was it for van life?
I think it was me, actually.
Yeah, it definitely was you.
Really?
You know, Jill gave me the travel bug when we first started dating. You know, after dating for a few years, we did a first international trip together, which led to a couple more. Then we got married, we did our honeymoon abroad. And I always had this, you know, inkling or desire to travel domestically. There's so many beautiful places in the U.S. that I don't know, I think most people take for granted when we get so bogged down with our day-to-day lifestyle. So for us, it was really deciding how we were going to do our travels, because we have the 2 dogs. Do we do the fifth wheel thing and buy a truck and tow that thing around and have more space, but limit our, I guess, maneuverability and be able to accessibility to off the beaten path camp spots and like where we're at right now. And we ultimately decided with the van to be able to access those things. So I think the transition happened too fast for us to even think twice about it, because once we got the van and quit our jobs, we had packed up our house in Nashville within like 3 days, sold a bunch of stuff, put the rest of it in storage, and we were gone in like 2 days after that.
Yeah.
So it
was like a week.
We didn't really have time to really like think about it.
Okay, so when you were planning your trip, what were the factors, like the key factors of like where you would go and why?
I think it was a lot of like the off-grid opportunities to be like in a completely different environment, because since we graduated college, we've lived in several different major cities, Dallas, Austin, and Nashville. All really fun cities, very busy. So, but we like to be almost secluded in nature, at least some of the time. So we wanted to take the opportunity to just be on our own, like completely secluded, whether it's like a mountain, beach, lake, anything. It doesn't matter. It's really nice to wake up and like open the van door to some amazing view that we usually would just see like on TikTok or Instagram or somebody else experiencing, and like have a coffee cup with no one in sight.
Advice that you would give to future, like somebody's watching this right now and they're like, van life's for me. You know, what lessons have you learned? What wisdom can you pass on to somebody else who's like just starting?
I'll let you think on it. I have one right off the bat.
Go ahead.
Is initially you have this picturesque, perfect day-to-day in mind, right? You wake up, you got the view, you're on the beach, you're in the mountain, coffee, everything's wonderful. You have a perfect hiked plan, and like you're gonna be swinging in a hammock the rest of the day. And 90+% of the time, it's not that.
Not that.
It's definitely, it can be a grind. And like some nights you may end up sleeping in a Cracker Barrel parking lot like we were the other night, or a Walmart parking lot. So it's not all.
Or sometimes you may not have enough water.
Flawless, you know, and then sourcing water and just making sure that, you know, if you have solar, making sure you have enough sun if you're off grid to charge everything. So I think just understanding that it's not all going to be perfect and kind of level setting your expectations is helpful, just so you don't get into it and get burnt out really fast.
I think my biggest piece of advice, and I wish I listened to myself, is to go at a slower pace.
That's good.
So I feel like just because we have a better or a end goal in mind, so we're ready to invest further, we're ready to get back into like purchasing more homes, short-term rentals, that kind of thing, we have an end goal. If people want to do van life like permanently, I think the best advice I can give is to take it easy. Because if you start going quickly and you're like, okay, I need to be to this city by this date, it's impossible to hit that. I mean, like it burns you out, like you said. Like you just have to take it easy. Take the time to unfold the chair. Take the time to make the fire. Take the time to like do all the things that you're doing, like why you're doing this. Like you're doing it because you want to set up the hammock, not because it's an inconvenience, but because that makes you happy.
Right.
So
that's great advice.
Yeah, take the time to do the things that like what makes you happy, because if you just try to rush through it, which is like definitely the way I live my life, I just always rush. It's just the way I am. Like then you start like stressing about where you're gonna be, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna get water, how you're gonna get electricity, how you're gonna get groceries, all the things. But overall, like we have everything we can need.
Yeah.
You know, like we have water, we have some
Which is crazy to say now, right? We're living in a tiny van and we have everything that we need. I think people get so caught up in what they don't have.
And we don't even use half our clothes.
Yeah, I
don't even use half of it.
I could have packed less clothes for sure. But just people get so caught up in what they don't have, and we're guilty of it too sometimes. You see what other people have and like, oh man, must be nice.
Grass is always greener.
Right? The grass is always greener, but then we come to realize that we have more than enough, even just in a van, which is crazy to say, but it just puts life into perspective.
Totally. It makes you grateful for everything.
This was my first time getting to travel with friends. Sitting around a fire, enjoying community, it's almost like getting to pick your neighbors. Trading must-see travel destinations and travel tips. For example, even though I've lived on the road before, I spent most of my nights in parking lots. And Mike and Jill taught me how they find off-grid camping spots like this one. The next morning, temperatures dropped, and we woke up to a surprise I was not prepared for.
All right, we're here at the International Balloon Festival in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Day 2, we were trying to see all the balloons go up. Fortunately, the weather did not cooperate, which is kind of like van life. You just got to roll with it. But we saw a couple of balloons at least inflate, so we're gonna go with it.
Sadly, it was time for us to part ways. Mike and Jill were off to finish their crazy trip, but something cool happened while we were out filming in the national forest. Funny story. While we were finishing up filming, in the middle of nowhere, a car pulls up, just to be friendly and to tell us about some camping spots just up the road.
And then we recognized you.
We happen to be following you on Instagram.
For years.
You do video, I do video. I recognize you immediately, and yeah, that's that. Welcome to our tiny mansion on wheels. No.
Welcome to our fully electric home.
Save the planet. I had it in my head a while ago. This is Toba Bus, and we're gonna take you on a tour.
Sorry, okay.
This is Toba Bus. Why am I doing these things with my hands? We're gonna take you guys around and show you what it's like to live in a tiny home on wheels house.
No, it's not a house, it's a home.
Home. So at some point we kind of decided our best way to be able to save lots of money for the future and kind of get some investments going, kind of do the fire lifestyle, was to go full-time in some sort of rig, sailboat, bus, RV. We weren't really sure, and we considered quite a few options. We started looking at like vans and camper ambulances, and even just buying a pre-built RV ready to go. I don't know how, but somehow we settled on a school bus.
He wanted the project. He likes projects.
Yep, so you can basically buy a school bus for under 10 grand with very few miles on it. It's been fleet maintained its whole life, so you can get one in really good condition that we knew was gonna be reliable. So we found one actually in Colorado, really close to where we lived. And then, you know, the project began. Yeah, when we built the bus, we kind of had a list of wants and needs. and kind of what was most important for us to feel comfortable to where we didn't feel like we were roughing it really. So we put in a large TV, we put in a large kitchen. Our bed's a queen size bed, and we have a shower and sink and toilet. Like, we don't need anything. We had to kind of adapt to a smaller space, but after being on it a few months, like, we're totally comfortable being in that space, and now the space goes with us wherever we are, and we're never away from home.
Driving this thing took a little bit of getting used to, but after a few months cruising around, totally comfortable now. We usually cruise the interstates about 60, 65, but when those hills start getting steep, we're down 35, 40 miles an hour. But if you think about it, it's a pretty fast house.
So when we knew we were going to do this bus lifestyle, we also had Mark's dad in mind to help out with the build. So he's an incredible cabinet maker. So we took the bus, drove it from Colorado all the way down to Florida so he can help customize and build my kitchen. He took everything that I loved in our original kitchen we had, and he just downsized it.
So speaking of kitchen appliances, we have a KitchenAid mixer, we have a pizza oven, we have a grill, we have a smoker. It's a bit ridiculous.
We have an Instapot.
But I'm not complaining because she loves to cook and it's delicious.
And everything takes 2 seconds to set up anyways. So he built me a full-on kitchen. I mean, the fridge is good size, the freezer's huge, a gas stove. I mean, we didn't even have a gas stove in the house that we just left, so like it kind of upgrade in my mind.
So I love cooking in my tiny kitchen because it's kind of an adventure for me. So it's kind of fun to be off-grid and try to, whenever we hit the store, have a list that will last us for however long we're off the grid to create savory, nutritious. A lot of it's going to be a little bit high caloric for my little bike racer and trainer over here, but just wholesome, healthy meals. And I love feeding people. If you're coming into the bus, you're going to get fed, whether you like it or not.
I can confirm that Billy's favorite hobby is cooking. That is my face stuffed with homemade pizza. Yes, they even have a specialized pizza oven that they travel with. It's a good thing Billy likes to cook because Mark's favorite hobby burns a ton of calories. And if you're wondering how a high-energy mountain biking video is made, here's some behind the scenes.
This is the garage. This door pulls out and we can hold 4 bikes on here, which is super nice. We got 2 gravel bikes, a mountain bike, and a dirt jump bike. So here we have some more storage for bike stuff that we need quickly, like gloves, knee pads, extra tubes and tires, things like that. We've got power, quick release water connection. These switches run lights and air compressor and quick release air compressor. The brains of our power system are located in here as well. We have all of our Victron equipment up top, our breaker panels, and then all our batteries are stored underneath those.
Welcome to the rooftop deck. This is a feature that I'm so glad that we stuck with. This is where we spend every evening, and then a lot of times dinner, depending on weather. If the weather's nice, we'll definitely be on top of here.
We have 4 320 watt solar panels, and our chimney for our tiny wood stove stays up here too.
And then we have the ladder, but we also have the boat hatch. There's our bed right there, so we can go in and out. Doo-doo-doo.
So I feel like our travel lifestyle is a little bit different than most people's. We find with a lot of people we meet, they'll stay a few days here and there and kind of bounce around. We like to outstay our welcome, if you will.
Plant some roots.
We'll stay at least 2 weeks. That's kind of the rule for public land, 2 weeks, and then you gotta move. Sometimes we might bend those rules a little bit.
No, we never.
No. But one of the goals for being on the bus and traveling like this is we kind of want to like live in different communities and see where we may want to settle down one day. Mm-hmm. So we don't feel like we can really experience that unless we stay for a while, kind of embed ourselves in the local community.
It's really fun, like instead of saying I visited somewhere, we can now kind of say, oh yeah, we lived there for a month, really got to explore it, got to know it. I like challenging him and being like, okay, I want to be on a lake, or I want to be on the beach, I want to be up in the mountains, and he'll find it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so
it's like, where do you want to live at next month? Let's go live at the lake. Mm-hmm. All right.
Because normally, like if you want that, you go on vacation, but we just post up and it's our home.
Yeah.
I was given a really good recommendation by a girlfriend who actually went to Africa to open up her own hospital. And what she said, because she loves to travel, and I feel like the whole template used to be you retire, then you get an RV, and then you travel. But she always says you got to travel when you're young because your body is able to handle the stresses a lot more. So that's always been kind of a thing for me. It's just like, yeah, like I'm healthy, we both have jobs. It's like, why not do it now?
Traveling is kind of like a hot air balloon ride. Whether you're traveling fast or moving slow, the results are the same. Traveling gives you a high altitude perspective on life and gives you a clear view on what's most important.
So for us, it was more about how can we create time freedom to where, neither of us particularly enjoyed our day jobs enough to where like we got excited on Monday morning to get out of bed and go work. And we didn't want to fall into that trap that is somewhat of a societal norm where we're going to work 9 to 5 until we're 60, 65 years old, retire, and then live our glory years. It was like, how can we flip that on its head and live our whole life, on our own terms and timeline? So creating that freedom of time was the most important for us.
What was like, in the initial stages, like what was the most appealing about the lifestyle?
For me, I think was like almost the minimalism approach to life. I think
Which is not mine.
True, but I think like we were not necessarily falling in the trap that most people do. Like each time during employment that we were to get a raise or change jobs and earn more money, it was like lifestyle creep, as a lot of people talk about. So we got a nicer apartment, we got a nicer car, got a nicer house. And at some point we're like, man, life just gets so complicated, and we didn't even have kids yet. So I can only imagine how much more complicated or how much more stuff you can accumulate. So there was some appeal to almost just minimalize and the basic necessities of life, and then just being more in the moment, I thought was kind of appealing, at least for me.
But I'll never, like, even just like a way of life, I'll never take for granted the freedom that we've had on this trip, and I hope we can continue to have this freedom and not get caught up in, like, you know, building our, you know, life moving forward. Like, I want to continue
to do what we want to do.
Totally.
Instead
and that's
of
the
doing
whole reason.
what we think that society is telling us that we should do. You can always make more money, you can always buy more things, but you can never get your time back. So it's like living life with as little regret as possible.
Next time on Becoming Borderless, I chase a band that lives in a school bus halfway across the country, and I convince my dad to jump in for the ride.